The real reason you don't have the money you want isn't because you're not working hard enough. It's because you haven't yet become the kind of person that money is attracted to. Money doesn't go to need, it goes to value. And until you change, your income won't. In this lesson, I'm going to show you the real reason you don't have the money you want. And it's not what you think. It's not your boss, your job, the economy, or even your background. It's your philosophy, the way you think about money, value, and discipline. I'll show you why most people spend their whole lives working hard and still end up broke. And I'll give you the principles that can change that story for you. By the end, you'll know exactly what to do to attract more money, more opportunity, and more freedom. I know what it feels like to work hard, to stay busy, to give your best, and still feel like you're barely keeping up. You pay the bills, but there's nothing left over. You make more money, but somehow it all slips away, and you think, what's wrong? Why can't I get ahead? I felt the same way at 25. I was broke, behind on my promises, and frustrated. But then I learned something. The money wasn't the problem. My philosophy was wrong. My disciplines were weak. My value was low. And the day I accepted that truth was the day everything began to change. So here's what we're going to do in the next 55 minutes. First, I'll show you the real reason money slips through most people's fingers, no matter how hard they work. Then, I'll reveal the mindset shift that makes money flow toward you instead of away from you. We'll talk about the daily disciplines that create fortune, the associations that shape your financial destiny, and the law of sowing and reaping that makes wealth predictable. And before we're done, I'll give you one test, a simple test you can use right now to know if your current habits will lead you to wealth or to regret. Once you see it, you'll never think about money the same way again. Here's something most people completely miss, and it's why they stay broke, even though they work hard, even though they try their best, even though they're sincere. They think the problem is money. They think if only I had more money, my problems would be solved. But let me tell you the truth, I had to learn the hard way. Money is not the problem. Money is never the cause. Money is always the effect. If you don't have the money you want, it's not the money that's missing. It's the disciplines, the skills, the philosophy, the value you bring to the marketplace. That's what's missing. And until you change those things, your money will never change. I remember when I was 25, broke, behind on my promises, and embarrassed by my situation. I kept saying to myself, I don't have enough money. If only the job paid me more. If only the government took less. If only the economy were better. But then my mentor, Earl Schoaf, stopped me. He said, Jim, that's the wrong way to think. Don't wish for more money. Wish to become more valuable. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. And that line cut me deep because it made me realize that I was the problem, not the company, not the boss, not the paycheck, me. My philosophy was wrong. My habits were weak. My value was low. And until I changed, nothing else would. See, most people think money goes to need, but it doesn't. Money doesn't care about your need. The soil doesn't care about your need. The marketplace doesn't pay for desperation. It pays for value. If money went to need, the poorest people would be the richest. But they're not. Why? Because money doesn't respond to need. It responds to value. And value comes from becoming more, not just wishing more. Think about it. Two people can live in the same country, under the same government, in the same economy, with the same taxes, the same inflation, the same storms of life, and one ends up wealthy while the other ends up broke. What's the difference? Not the wind. The winds of life blow on us all. The difference is the set of the sail. The difference is philosophy. One man says, the problem is out there. The other man says, the problem is in here. And only the second man ever changes his fortune. I'll never forget the little Girl Scout who knocked on my door one evening. She had the sweetest smile and the best sales pitch I'd ever heard, $2 a box. And I lied to her. I said, sorry, I've already bought some. The truth, I didn't have $2 in my pocket. Imagine that a grown man, working hard, sincere, doing his best, and he couldn't afford $2 to help a child. That was the night I realized how bad my situation was. Not because of money, but because of me, because of my philosophy, because of the choices I had made. And that realization was painful, but it was also the beginning of change. So here's the truth I want you to catch. If you don't have the money you want, stop blaming the job. Stop blaming the boss. Stop blaming the system. Stop blaming your upbringing, your city, your country. None of that will change your income. The only thing that will is you. Your philosophy, your skills, your habits, your value in the marketplace. That's what determines how much money you have. Not the government, not the economy, not the paycheck. Now, the exciting part is this. If money is the effect and you are the cause, then the power is in your hands. You can change your philosophy. You can change your habits. You can raise your value. You can decide today to stop wishing and start becoming. And when you change, your money will change. When you become more, you will attract more. When you bring more value to the marketplace will reward you. It has to. That's the law. So the real reason you don't have the money you want isn't money. It's the way you think about money. It's the philosophy you've adopted, maybe from parents, maybe from friends, maybe from the crowd. And if it's wrong, it's keeping you broke. That's why the next step is so important. Because philosophy is the compass. Philosophy sets the direction. And if you set it wrong, no amount of effort will save you. So let's take a closer look at the two philosophies that dominate life. The poverty philosophy that keeps people broke, and the wealth philosophy that builds fortunes. Here's something you've got to face if you want to turn your financial life around. Most people are broke not because they're lazy, but because their philosophy is wrong. See, poverty is not just about the size of your paycheck. Poverty is first in the mind, then in the habits, then in the bank account. If the philosophy is wrong, the results will always be wrong. And here's the tragedy. Most people never examine their philosophy. They just inherit it. They borrow it from their parents, their friends, the crowd around them. And the crowd isn't wealthy. The crowd isn't free. The crowd is broke. And if you think like the crowd, live like the crowd, spend like the crowd, guess what? You'll end up like the crowd. The poverty philosophy has a few clear marks. One of them is this belief: if I just keep my job, I'll be secure. But security is an illusion if all you have is wages. Wages make you a living. They rarely make you a fortune. And if all you ever depend on is a job, you'll spend 40 or 50 years trading time for dollars and still wonder why you never got ahead. See, a job is important, but it was never meant to be your only source. The wealthy man uses his job as a foundation, but then he builds skills, businesses, investments. The poor man believes the job itself is the guarantee. That's poverty thinking. Another sign of the poverty philosophy is the addiction to comfort. The poor man says, why save when I can spend? Why invest when I can enjoy today? Why discipline myself when I can relax? And it sounds harmless, even reasonable. But those little errors in judgment, repeated every day, add up to a lifetime of regret. Miss the book today. Miss the saving today. Miss the chance to grow today. And it doesn't hurt, not today. But stack up 1,000 days like that, and suddenly it's 20 years gone and nothing to show for it. That's how the poverty philosophy works. It trades tomorrow for today. It trades wealth for comfort. It trades freedom for ease. I remember telling myself when I was young, I'll start later. I'll save later. I'll get serious later. But later never came. Later turned into years. Years turned into regret. And one night, a little Girl Scout knocked on my door selling cookies for $2. I didn't have $2 in my pocket. Imagine that a grown man working hard, trying his best, and he couldn't even buy a box of cookies from a child. That was poverty philosophy in action. Not because I wasn't working, not because I wasn't sincere, but because my thinking was wrong. I thought the job would save me. I thought effort alone was enough. But the truth was, my philosophy was leading me straight to regret. And here's the third mark of the poverty philosophy: blame. Poor thinkers always look outside themselves. They blame the boss, the government, the taxes, the economy, their background, their parents. They say, if only things were different out there, my life would be better in here. But that's the trap. Because as long as the problem is outside, you can never change it. And that's why the poor stay poor. They give away responsibility. They give away power. They wait for someone else to fix their life. And the waiting never ends. So let me ask you, does this sound familiar? Do you tell yourself you'll start later? Do you believe your job is your only security? Do you find yourself blaming the system, the boss, the economy? If so, you've got the poverty philosophy, and it will keep you broke no matter how hard you work, because philosophy is the compass. And if it's pointing the wrong way, you'll never arrive at the right destination. But here's the good news. Philosophy is a choice. You can change it. You can stop borrowing the crowd's thinking and adopt a new philosophy, the wealthy philosophy. Because the wealthy man thinks differently. He believes differently. He acts differently. And that difference in thinking is what makes the difference in his results. So let's turn the page and look at the wealthy philosophy, the one that builds fortune, freedom, and security that no job alone can ever give you. Now let's talk about the other side, the wealthy philosophy. Because if the poverty philosophy traps you, the wealthy philosophy frees you. And here's what's remarkable. Both men, the broke man and the wealthy man, live in the same world. They face the same economy, the same taxes, the same politics, the same weather, the same disappointments, the same unexpected turns. The difference isn't what happens to them. The difference is how they think about what happens. The poor man sees problems. The wealthy man sees opportunities. The poor man looks for someone to blame. The wealthy man looks for a lesson to learn. The poor man waits for things to change. The wealthy man changes himself. And that shift in philosophy is what makes all the difference. The wealthy philosophy starts with this belief. Money is not the goal, money is the result. The goal is to become valuable, to become skilled, to become wise, to become disciplined. Because when you become more, you attract more. The market pays for value, not hours. You can work hard your whole life, but if your value stays the same, your income stays the same. The wealthy understand that income rarely exceeds personal development. If you want to earn more, you must become more. That's why my mentor told me, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. At first, I didn't understand. How could working on myself change my paycheck? But then I realized your paycheck is not just tied to your time, it's tied to the value you bring to the marketplace. And the only way to raise your value is to raise yourself. The wealthy philosophy also understands the law of sowing and reaping. Wealth doesn't come by luck. It doesn't come by chance. It comes as a harvest. You sow the seeds, you water the seeds, you weed the field, you wait through the seasons, and then you reap the harvest. It's predictable. The poor man waits for a miracle. The wealthy man sows for a harvest. And the law works the same for both. The soil doesn't care who you are. It only cares what you plant. Sow excuses, reap regret. Sow discipline, reap reward. Sow nothing, reap nothing. Sow wisely, reap abundantly. The wealthy philosophy lives by that law. Another mark of the wealthy philosophy is personal responsibility. I'll never forget when my mentor told me to write down all my excuses, the taxes, the boss, the government, the economy, the upbringing. Then he told me to tear it up. Now, he said, get a clean sheet of paper and write one word at the top. Me. That was the moment it clicked. Wealth doesn't start with changing the system. Wealth starts with changing you. The poor man waits for circumstances to improve. The wealthy man improves himself and makes his own circumstances, and that's why one stays broke while the other builds fortune. And the wealthy philosophy always looks long-term. The poor man asks, what feels good today? The wealthy man asks, what will this decision look like in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years? The poor man spends every dollar as it comes. The wealthy man saves, invests, multiplies. The poor man eats his seed. The wealthy man plants his seed. Same seed, different philosophy, different future. So here's the question. Which philosophy do you live by? Do you chase money as if it's the goal? Or do you build yourself until money has no choice but to chase you? Do you wait for the winds to change? Or do you reset your sail? Do you spend your seed? Or do you sow it for a future harvest? Because those questions will decide whether you stay broke or build wealth. And here's the good news. You can change philosophies. You can decide tonight to tear up the old one and write a new one. You can decide to stop thinking like the crowd and start thinking like the wealthy. And the moment you do, the same winds that once pushed you down will begin to carry you forward. That's the power of philosophy. It sets the direction. It sets the sail. It decides whether you drift or whether you arrive. But philosophy alone isn't enough. Philosophy gives you direction, but discipline is what builds the bridge. Discipline is the glue that holds the whole thing together. Without discipline, even the best philosophy collapses. Without discipline, even the richest soil won't produce. So let's take the next step and talk about discipline, the missing bridge most people never cross. Here's something life makes certain. Every one of us must pay a price. There's no avoiding it. You can't escape it. The only choice you get is which price you're willing to pay. The pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And let me tell you, discipline weighs ounces, but regret weighs tons. Discipline might sting for a moment, but it fades and leaves behind pride. Regret, on the other hand, lingers for years and leaves behind shame. Once you've carried regret, you'd give anything to go back and choose discipline instead. The pain of discipline shows up in little ways, quiet ways. It's the sting of setting the alarm and getting out of bed when you'd rather sleep. It's the ache of saying no to a little pleasure now so you can save for something greater later. It's the discomfort of opening a book when the television is easier. It's the weight of making that call, of writing in your journal, of putting a few dollars into savings instead of spending them. None of these things are dramatic. Nobody applauds you for them. And yet, those small disciplines are the very planks that build the bridge to wealth and success. The pain of regret is very different. Regret doesn't show up today. Today, neglect feels harmless. Skip the gym today, no big deal. Spend the money today, no problem. Miss the reading, miss the savings, miss the effort, you don't feel it. But add it up. Stack up 1,000 skipped days, and one day you wake up and the harvest is gone. The body is weak. The bank account is empty. The opportunities have passed. And then the pain of regret comes crashing in and it weighs more than you can carry. That's the terrible trade-off of neglect. It never screams in the moment, it only whispers. It whispers, this won't matter. And you believe the whisper until years later when regret shouts and it's too late to change it. I've lived both pains. At 25, I was broke, embarrassed, behind on my promises. That was regret. Regret that I hadn't disciplined myself to save. Regret that I hadn't disciplined myself to read. Regret that I hadn't disciplined myself to take advice. And I'll tell you, regret is heavy. Regret is crushing. Then my mentor said, Jim, you can either carry regret the rest of your life, or you can start paying the lighter price, the price of discipline. And that changed me. I decided I'd rather wake up a little earlier, push a little harder, study a little longer, save a little more, because the ounces of discipline are nothing compared to the tons of regret. So let me ask you, which pain are you paying? You may not realize it, but every day you choose, when you skip the discipline, you're choosing regret. When you practice the discipline, you're choosing freedom. You can't avoid pain, but you can choose the lighter one. And once you see it this way, discipline stops feeling like punishment. It starts feeling like design, because that's what discipline really is. It's designed for your future. Every small discipline is a line in the blueprint of your destiny. Every decision to say yes to discipline and no to neglect is another brick laid on the bridge that carries you toward the life you want. And here's the good news. The decision is yours. Nobody can take it from you. Nobody can make it for you. You can decide tonight to stop paying the crushing weight of regret and start paying the light price of discipline. It won't impress anyone today, but it will reward you tomorrow. And 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you'll look back grateful that you paid the small price early instead of the heavy price later. Now that we understand the two pains, let's get practical. Because discipline is not just an idea, it's a practice. And the bridge is built not by thinking about discipline, but by living it every day. So let's talk about the small daily disciplines, the ones that seem ordinary, but practiced consistently, create fortunes, transform lives, and guarantee pride instead of regret. Now here's the part most people miss, the real secret. They think success is something dramatic, something spectacular, something that happens in a flash of inspiration or a stroke of luck. But that's not true. Success hides in the ordinary. Success hides in the small. Daily disciplines that don't look like much today, but practiced every day, compound into extraordinary results tomorrow. The bridge between goals and accomplishment isn't built from grand gestures. It's built from 10 pages read, $1 saved, a few minutes in a journal, a single conversation handled with integrity. Little things that seem so easy to do and just as easy not to do. Take reading, for example. What does reading 10 pages of a good book do for you today? Almost nothing. You won't feel wiser. Your paycheck won't go up overnight. Nobody will clap for you. But add it up. 10 pages a day is 3,650 pages in a year. That's dozens of books. In 5 years, you've consumed a library, and that knowledge, that wisdom, that perspective builds you into someone rare, and the market pays for rare. That's why wealthy people read. Not because reading one day changes everything, but because reading every day changes them. Or take saving money. What difference does $1 a day make? Almost none today. But stack it up with discipline. Invest it wisely. And over years it grows. Not just into dollars, but into freedom. Because the discipline of saving teaches more than finance. It teaches foresight, patience, responsibility, and those qualities spill over into every part of your life. The poor man spends it all and waits for a miracle. The wealthy man saves and builds his own miracle. Or take health. 1 glass of water, 1 skipped dessert, 1 push-up doesn't matter today, but add them up. Over months and years, those small choices build strength, energy, vitality. Or, neglected, they build disease, weakness, regret. The law works the same in the body as it does in the bank account. You always reap what you sow, and don't overlook relationships. A thank you card, a kind word, a little note of appreciation. These are disciplines too. And neglect them long enough, and you'll reap loneliness. Practice them faithfully, and you'll reap loyalty, trust, love. That's the law again. The harvest always matches the seed. Now here's the problem and the danger. Because these disciplines are so small, they're easy to skip. It's easy to say, it doesn't matter if I don't read today. It doesn't matter if I don't save today. It doesn't matter if I don't write today. And in the moment, it doesn't. But over time, that neglect adds up, and one day the bridge collapses under your feet. Neglect is just as easy as discipline, but its results are devastating. So the question is, which side are you on? Are you stacking planks of discipline day by day, building a bridge that'll carry you to fortune? Or are you leaving gaps with neglect until the bridge can't hold the weight of your own dreams? Because one thing's for sure, you're building something whether you're aware of it or not. And here's the exciting part. You don't have to change your whole life in one day. You don't have to start 50 new habits. You only need one. One small discipline practiced consistently can change the entire direction of your life. 10 pages today. $1 today. One thank you today. And once you feel the pride of discipline, it gets easier. Discipline attracts discipline, just like neglect attracts neglect. And before long, your whole life is stitched together by strong daily habits. And the bridge beneath your feet is strong enough to carry you wherever you want to go. So don't underestimate the small thing. Don't despise the day of small beginnings. Because success is nothing more than simple disciplines practiced daily, and failure is nothing more than small errors in judgment repeated daily. That's the truth. That's the formula. That's the difference. Now, let's go one step deeper. Because discipline doesn't just add up, it multiplies. The compounding effect of daily habits can change your life in ways you can't even predict. So let's talk about that multiplication, about how one small discipline repeated daily doesn't just bring results, it creates a harvest far greater than you can imagine. Now here's something almost everyone underestimates, the power of compounding. Most people think compounding only applies to money, to interest rates, to investments, but it applies to everything, to your health, your relationships, your skills, your philosophy, and yes, your income. Compounding means that what you do daily doesn't just add up, it multiplies. And over time, the multiplication is so great, it creates a gap between those who practice discipline and those who neglect it that can hardly be believed. See, the poor man thinks missing one day doesn't matter. He says, I'll skip the book today, I'll skip the saving today, I'll eat the dessert today. And he's right. One day doesn't ruin you. But what he doesn't understand is that one day becomes 2, 2 becomes 10, 10 becomes a habit, and that habit compounds. Neglect doesn't shout at you. It doesn't break you overnight. It creeps, it compounds, it multiplies. And years later, the harvest of neglect arrives in your body, in your bank account, in your relationships. And by then, it's too late to change the season. Now the wealthy man sees it differently. He knows that 10 pages of a book today won't change much, but 1,000 pages will. He knows $1 saved today won't make him rich, but 1,000 saved, then 10,000, then 100,000 will. He knows 1 hour of practice won't make him a master, but 10,000 hours will. He knows every discipline compounds, and he knows the law is always working, the soil is always multiplying whatever you plant, and because he sows discipline every day, his harvest is wealth, wisdom, and freedom. Think of it this way. Compounding is like interest on your habits. You put in a little today, you don't notice much. You put in a little tomorrow, still not much. But keep going, and suddenly the interest kicks in. Suddenly the gap between you and the man who neglected is so wide you can hardly recognize each other anymore. He's tired, broke, bitter, full of regret. You're strong, free, wealthy, respected. Same year, same time, same opportunity, different habits. Compounded over time. That's the compounding effect. And here's the sobering part. The law works both ways. Good habits compound into fortune. Bad habits compound into regret. You don't escape the law. You don't get to opt out. You're always compounding something. The only question is, what? Are you compounding discipline, or are you compounding neglect? Are you compounding wisdom, or are you compounding ignorance? Are you compounding wealth, or are you compounding debt? Whatever you choose daily is multiplying silently, whether you like it or not. So let me ask you, what are you compounding right now? If you keep living the way you're living, practicing the same habits, listening to the same voices, spending the same way, where will you be in 5 years? In 10? That's the question compounding forces you to face. Because 5 years from now, you won't be the same. You'll either be ahead or behind. You'll either be proud or regretful. You'll either be free or stuck. That's the power of compounding. And here's the opportunity. You can change it anytime. You can decide today to stop compounding neglect and start compounding discipline. You can decide to pick up the book, save the dollar, practice the skill, have the conversation, make the effort. And once you do, the law shifts in your favor. The compounding begins to work for you instead of against you. And the sooner you start, the bigger the harvest down the road. So remember this, success and failure are not dramatic events. They're the inevitable result of compounding habits over time. One leads to fortune, the other to regret. And the choice is yours every single. Now, even with the right philosophy and strong discipline, there's still another piece most people overlook. And it's a powerful one. Because no matter how strong your habits, the people you surround yourself with can either multiply your success or multiply your failure. Let's talk about associations, the hidden influence on your money, and why your company quietly decides your destiny. Now, here's something that will quietly decide your financial future, maybe even more than your philosophy or your discipline. It's your associations, the people you spend the most time with. Because whether you realize it or not, the voices you listen to, the standards you accept, the habits you absorb, all come from the company you keep. Their talk becomes your talk. Their habits become your habits. Their excuses become your excuses. And little by little, without even knowing it, you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's not a suggestion. That's a law of influence. Think about it. Sit long enough with complainers, and you'll have a complaint list of your own. Spend enough time with people who always blame the boss, the taxes, the government, and pretty soon you'll be blaming too. You didn't plan it. But influence works like osmosis. It seeps in. It colors your thinking. It weakens your resolve. And you wake up one day with the same results as the people you were sitting with. But it works in the other direction too. Spend time with ambitious people, and suddenly your own vision gets bigger. Sit with readers, and you'll start reading. Walk with savers, and you'll start saving. Join dreamers who are also doers, and their example will shame you out of excuses. Influence is contagious, and the only choice you have is what you're catching: disease or health, poverty or wealth, excuses or ambition. My mentor told me, Jim, don't join an easy crowd. You won't grow there. Go where the expectations are high, where the demands are strong, where the conversations make you stretch. And he was right. The easy crowd is comfortable. They'll pat you on the back for mediocrity. They'll tell you you're fine just the way you are. But the easy crowd will never pull you up. They'll never sharpen you. They'll never demand more of you. And that's why easy crowds are dangerous, because they make you comfortable while you quietly waste your potential. Hard crowds, on the other hand, ambitious crowds, demanding crowds, they make you uncomfortable. They make you work. They make you grow. And yes, it's painful at first, but it's the very thing that builds you into someone rare, someone valuable, someone wealthy. Now I know the objection. Some people say, but Jim, I can't just abandon my friends. I can't just walk away from my family. And you don't have to. You don't have to cut people off, but you do have to control the level of influence they have on you. Love them, respect them, be kind to them, but don't let them set your philosophy. Don't let them weaken your discipline. Don't let them drag you back into their excuses. Because here's the truth. You can't walk across the bridge to wealth while holding hands with people who refuse to move. Someone will have to let go. So here's my challenge. Evaluate your associations. Write down your 5. Who are you listening to? Who are you spending hours with? Who shapes your thinking, your talk, your habits? And ask yourself, do they inspire me or discourage me? Do they raise my standards or lower them? Do they demand more of me or let me off the hook? Because those answers are quietly deciding your future. If you don't like the harvest they're leading you to, it's time to change the seed. It's time to choose new company. Company that will lift you, challenge you, stretch you, and pull you toward your best self. Remember this, associations are not neutral. They are either building your bridge or weakening it. They are either laying planks under your feet or pulling them out from beneath you. And one day you'll look up and realize you've become like the people you walked with. That's why this principle is so critical. Because no matter how strong your philosophy or how consistent, your discipline, the wrong company can still sabotage your future. Now, once you've got your philosophy right, your discipline strong, and your associations chosen wisely, there's one last law that brings it all together. The law that guarantees your results, whether you like them or not. It's the oldest law of all, and it makes wealth predictable. Let's talk about the law of sowing and reaping. Now, here's the final piece, the law that ties everything together, the law that explains why some lives flourish and others fade, why some men cross the bridge to wealth and others spend their whole lives wishing. It's the law of sowing and reaping. And the law is simple. You always reap what you sow. That's it. That's the guarantee. If you sow discipline, you reap reward. If you sow neglect, you reap regret. If you sow little, you reap little. If you sow much, you reap much. If you sow nothing, you reap nothing. The soil doesn't care about your need. The soil doesn't care about your story. The soil only responds to the seed. This is why wealth is predictable. It's not a mystery. It's not luck. It's not reserved for a few. It's simply a matter of what you're sowing every day. And here's the catch most people miss. You don't reap in the same season you sow. That's why people give up. They read a book or two and nothing changes. They save a few dollars and it feels like nothing. They go to the gym for a week and there's no transformation. So they quit. They say, see, it doesn't work. But the farmer knows better. The farmer knows there's a season for planting, a season for watering, a season for waiting, and then, in due time, a season for harvest. Life is the same. Just because you don't see results right away doesn't mean the law isn't working. It just means you're still in the growing season. And here's the exciting part. You always reap more than you sow. One seed of corn doesn't produce one kernel. It produces a stalk with ears, with hundreds of kernels. That's multiplication. That's abundance. That's the miracle hidden in the law. And it works the same way in your life. One small act of kindness multiplies into respect, trust, relationships that carry you. One small discipline multiplies into skills, wisdom, income, influence. One small habit of saving multiplies into wealth, independence, freedom. That's the wealthy man's secret. He respects the law. He sows consistently, patiently, deliberately, knowing the law will multiply his seed in due season. But here's the warning. Neglect multiplies too. One cigarette may not kill you, but 1,000 will. $1 wasted may not bankrupt you, but 1,000 will. One missed workout may not hurt, but years of neglect will. That's the other side of the law. The soil multiplies, whatever you give it, whether good or bad. And when the harvest comes, you can't change it. You can't trade it back. You can't tell the soil you meant well. The soil doesn't respond to intention. It only responds to seed. So here's the question. What seeds are you sowing? Every word you speak, every choice you make, every habit you practice is a seed, and the harvest is guaranteed. That's why the wealthy live deliberately. They sow deliberately. They understand tomorrow is hiding in today's actions. Poverty isn't an accident. Wealth isn't magic. Regret isn't fate. They're all harvests of seeds planted over time. And here's the good news. You can start over. You can decide tonight to stop sowing neglect and start sowing discipline. You can choose new seeds. The soil is ready. The law is waiting. Life doesn't hold grudges. It doesn't punish you forever for what you failed to plant yesterday. The moment you start sowing wisely, the law shifts in your favor, and in time, you'll reap the harvest. That's the guarantee. So remember, money is not the problem. Money is the result, and your harvest is waiting on the seeds you choose to plant. Sow wisely, sow abundantly, sow consistently, and the harvest of wealth, freedom, and pride will be yours. Now let's bring all of this together in a closing thought. A reminder of the great truths we've uncovered and the challenge that can change your life if you'll accept it. So let's come back to where we started. The real reason you don't have the money you want, it's not because you're not working hard enough. It's not because you're not sincere. It's not because the government is unfair, or the boss doesn't see you, or the economy isn't cooperating. No, the truth is, money is not the problem. Money has never been the problem. Money's only the result. The result of philosophy, the result of discipline, the result of associations, the result of sowing and reaping. And until you change those things, nothing changes in your wallet, nothing changes in your bank account, nothing changes in your future. So let's tie it together. First, philosophy. If you think wrong, you live wrong. If you borrow the crowd's philosophy, you'll borrow the crowd's results. Poverty is a philosophy before it is a condition. Wealth is a philosophy before it is a fortune. If you want more money, don't start with money. Start with thinking. Start with asking the right questions. Start with choosing the right beliefs. That's the compass that sets your sail. Then, discipline. Philosophy gives you the direction, but discipline builds the bridge. You can know the way and still never arrive if you don't cross. And the bridge is built one plank at a time. The daily disciplines that look small, ordinary, unimportant, 10 pages read, $1 saved, one note of gratitude, one act of integrity, one exercise done. Easy to do, easy not to do. But they compound, and in time, they create the bridge that carries you to the life you want. Then, associations. No matter how strong your philosophy, no matter how consistent your discipline, if you walk with the wrong crowd, you'll end up where they end up. Associations are not neutral. They either raise you or lower you, strengthen you or weaken you, multiply your success or multiply your failure. Choose wisely. Sit with complainers, and you'll complain. Walk with achievers, and you'll achieve. Don't join an easy crowd. Go where expectations are high, because that's where your future is waiting. And finally, the law of sowing and reaping. This is the guarantee. You always reap what you sow. You always reap later than you sow. And you always reap more than you sow. Sow little, reap little. Sow much, reap much. Sow neglect, reap regret. Sow discipline, reap fortune. The law doesn't bend for anyone. It doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care about your intentions. It only cares about the seed. And that's why money is predictable. Poverty is predictable. Wealth is predictable. Because they are all harvests. So here's the challenge. Don't just wish for more money. Wish to become more valuable. Don't just hope for wealth. Sow the seeds of wealth. Don't just wait for luck. Build your bridge plank by plank with daily disciplines, with strong philosophy, with the right associations. Because success isn't pursued, it's attracted. And it's attracted by the person you become. If you want more, become more. If you want change, change. If you want a different future, start sowing different seeds today. And here's my invitation. If you've ever wondered why most people spend their whole lives working hard and still retire broke, you'll want to join me in my next lesson. Because it's not an accident. It's not fate. It's a mistake most people never correct. And it's the reason why their harvest is empty. Once you see it, you'll never look at work, money, or effort the same way again. So click here, join me, and let's continue this journey. Because your future is waiting, and the harvest is in your hands.